Welcome back to the Partner Podcast. Today we have Julian Fayad from LoanOptions.ai. Welcome, Julian. How are you going?
Yeah, going really well. Thank you, Jamie. I appreciate you having me on here. Really cool.
No problem, mate. Now, for people that haven't perhaps heard of Loan Options yet, can you let us know what you guys are doing?
Yeah, so Loan Options AI is Australia's first AI-powered loan marketplace. Our key point of difference is we don't just hand off the client to a bank or financial institution. We actually have more than 75 banks and lenders integrated in the platform, and it matches the client with the most appropriate lender and the lender that's most likely going to say yes at the best rate possible. And then we actually do the facilitation for the client as well. So it's just one simple application form that gives them access to see offers from 75 major banks and lenders. And it doesn't impact your credit score, which is one of the key parts there.
Yeah, that's pretty handy. So people can just jump on, have a look and see if they qualify for some finance.
Yeah, and just, fill out the details, and obviously our team getting in touch to concierge you. Applying for a loan can be stressful, can be difficult, but we just really make the process as easy as it possibly can. And then we've got a team of really experienced finance brokers sitting behind it, the cool tech, that are there to just, walk you through it and really hold your hand and make sure that it is the best deal that's been selected, and, negotiate with the lender for you, and really just go into bat for the client. So our model is very simple because it's success-based. So if we don't get you a great outcome that costs you nothing, the service is free. And if we do settle a loan, we obviously get paid a commission from all the lenders. But, that part is, only on success. So our team are driven really to try and find you the best outcome.
The best deal. Oh, that's great. Now that sounds pretty impressive. You're probably used to it because you say it every day. How can you rewind kind of the journey a bit? How did you get started into doing what you're doing today?
Yeah, well, kind of left school thinking my career was going to be in IT, web development specifically. I started a course, and I was kind of working part-time, and then I got an opportunity to get to work full-time. I kind of needed to earn money and help support my family. And eventually the full-time work and the full-time study was just too much. And I landed in it with a asset finance company is kind of where I landed. And so I dropped the web development course and I started working in asset finance. And while I was doing that, I was still, very keen, and it was a passion of mine to kind of build tech. And I developed an app that I deployed on the Apple App Store when I was about 18 or 19 years old, let's say 19. And, just was a little bit of a side hustle. I was earning some ad revenue on it and things like that. But so fast forward, I worked for that company for 3 and a bit years before, actually longer than that. I worked for that company until I was 23. So it would have been 4 and a bit years, nearly 5 years. And I got an opportunity to join a finance brokerage, that was a blank canvas. They saw that I'd scaled that previous business. I was doing, I moved through, different positions and seniorities. And so there was a blank canvas business that I had the potential to own a share in. So that was, at the time, being 23, I was really excited by that. So that was 2016. In 2017, as I was scaling that business, I realized just how clunky the existing systems were, how bad all the online application forms were, and just how backwards the process of actually selecting a loan was. It was really, you had to rely on what's in here, and you had to be a really experienced broker. And so the pivotal point for me was like I became like the Wikipedia of choosing lenders, because everybody in the team, and it was about 20 people at the time, as well as all of our partners, would actually call me and ask questions. Hey, I've got this scenario. I'd love to know, which lender do you think this can go to? Right. And so I became that guy. And I remember one day where a light bulb moment. I got in the iPhone, you have like your call log can take about 150 calls before it overrides.
Yeah.
And I got a call from somebody. It was a reasonably important call, and it was at like 9:30 a.m. or something. And I said, I'll call you back once I've got an answer for you. And then I went to call back at about 3 o'clock, and I scrolled through my call register, and I couldn't find the number, and I realized that it only was going back to like 11 a.m. So basically, I'd been getting so many calls and making so many calls back that I was just like, this isn't scalable. Like, there's got to be a better way. So what I
Wow.
started doing was writing down all of the logic for and the reasoning that I came to a certain conclusion. So, client's employment length was
Ah.
this long, this is what, their credit score is, this is what their situation is. I wrote it all down. And then I wrote down all of the criteria that the lenders were looking for. And so by the time I went through, at the time, there was like 40 lenders or so in the market. By the time I got through all 40 lenders and wrote down every single aspect of what they do on one axis, then I wrote every lender on the opposite axis. And the MVP was just in Excel. It was a really low tech solution, but perfect for what we needed to test how good we
Yeah.
could make it. And so we just had like a simple input page, and then we had an output page, and the output page was with all of the logic, at individual credit criteria level, was it passing or was it failing? Or if it was something in between, if it was like a bit of a gray area, then it would flag that, almost like a traffic light system. Pass is green, red is fail, the orange is the maybe, and you need to kind of do a bit for deeper dive. And so that was the let's call it the alpha version
Mm.
in Excel. And then we basically ran a live beta for the next. I was in that business for 4 years because I eventually started Loan Options in 2020, so 2016 to 2020.
Yep.
And so ran the live beta. The team were kind of providing feedback in real time. We ran thousands and thousands of scenarios through it, and it was really such a useful tool.
Was it
And
called Loan Options, or that was more internal?
no, it was internal. It was
Gotcha.
internal, and so Loan Options wasn't born yet. That name
Yep.
wasn't even. So I used to give it code names because it was internal. It was like at one point it was called Ultron, and it was just different
Nice.
versions got different names. And we were just, I was a nerd, so it always got like a nerdy name. You know, I called it Watson, but then IBM had Watson, so I was like, all right, I got to change it that. And so I just played with different names, but they were just like names for individual versions, like almost like how Mac OS has like Mac OS,
Gotcha.
Sierra or Mojave or
Yeah.
whatever. And so then I started working on dynamic application forms because I was like, the application forms where they're just like a whole lengthy, scrolling, endless fields. They're so overwhelming for a customer, and they don't really
Mm.
understand the questioning. The questioning is
Mm.
always really finance related and uses a lot of jargon. So I thought, how can I do that? So I just built it with dynamic logic I built one in Jotform and one in Typeform, and I was kind of A/B testing them. And then COVID hit in that business, and at the time it was owned by 60% owned by an ASX listed business because there was a bit of an acquisition there. And I guess we had different views on how we should do things through that COVID period. And I was saying, this is a business that has so much potential, like we should,
Mm.
still operate it. And they were very
Sorry, Jill,
concerned.
could you tell, like, when the team was using the tool, the Watson or whatever you were calling it at the
Yeah,
time, was your phone calling less?
100%. Yeah, yeah.
That's
Oh,
cool.
so much
Some product
less.
market
Yeah,
fit right there.
yeah. It was, and really, it made everyone's job, including mine, so much easier. Like the amount of time it saved the brokers. I just want you to think if there's 40 lenders, right? And let's say 20 of them are consumer lenders and 20 of them are commercial lenders, and it's a consumer loan, you've got 20 lenders, right? And then you might have like, say, even 10 of those out of the 20 are like, pretty competitively priced, and then about 10 of them would be like subprime options. So you kind of had to work with and workshop it with about, using a realistic number, about 10 different options. and you had to work out their pricing and look at their matrix and do it, step by step. Yeah, some of them you had to log into their portals and do it through their portal. So you had to log into potentially 10 different systems to get the quotes
Yeah,
and
wow. It's inefficient.
check serviceability on 10 different spreadsheets that the lenders would give you. It was so inefficient, and there was a lot of double, triple. Sometimes you were entering the same information 10 times, like it was that. And so this was just input the information once. In the first version I'm talking about, input the information once, and then it will do all of that for you across the 40 lenders, whether it's consumer or commercial.
Yep.
And it would give you the pricing and all the rest of it, tell you pass or fail if it was failing with a certain lender. So let's say there was a big delta between two lenders, let's say Macquarie and Plenty. Macquarie was maybe the cheaper offer, Plenty was the more flexible offer. And so you'd be able to go to the client and say, here are your options, much quicker than, so it had like a cool little document that it gave. It was called a Loan Smart report, gave the client a document so they could understand why they ended up with the rate they got. It told them all the things that were good about their application and all the things that needed, improvement in their application, if it was required. So yeah, I was building that. I was spending my own time building that. I was doing it, kind of working really late in going home after work and then starting working on that. And I'd come in the next day with like all these updates and then talk to the team. All right, now I want you to try this. And so the company that acquired that auto approved business promised to invest in building that out into a more robust solution. And that promise wasn't kept, which is one of the reasons why I asked for removal of my non-compete and gave back my shares,
Right.
and started again, essentially. So this time I started, the business by myself, and I was looking for a software partner to build it. And day one, month one, we were already, profitable business, because I'd been doing it for at that time I'd been doing it for 9 or 10 years.
Yeah,
I'm heading
wow.
on to 12 or 13 now. And so I was like, okay, well, here's what I need. So I spoke to a few different software development companies, and then I also needed a CRM for asset finance. And through Auto Approve, I'd met my now business partners, Simon and Grant, and they were building a software CRM and had some, basic price matching technology as well. And so we sat down and I just said, hey, listen, the conversation was purely, hey, I want to license your CRM and use it in my business. And they're like, tell us about the business. And said, here's what I'm working on, and showed them, the spreadsheet and all that kind of stuff. And then they got really excited by it because they're nerds like me. And they're like, hey, maybe there's a different conversation here. So that is the importance of a partnership. And that was one of the, I guess, like a really instrumental partnership for Loan Options, because we had access to a team of software developers. And
Yeah.
at a different level, if you think about the level, we were now going to integrate the intellectual property that I'd been building into an asset finance CRM. So the minute the lead came in, you could do the matching in an automated fashion, and then you could submit it to a lender, and they had a bunch of APIs that could push it straight through the lender. And they had some online application forms and stuff like that. So probably took 12 months or so to kind
How
of
long did you know them prior to this, personally?
Probably about 12 months, knew them for about 12 months
Okay.
prior.
Well, that's
So
handy.
what we ended up doing is we did an equity swap, Now I'm not saying that's for everybody, but when you have a level of trust and you do the right references on people,
Can you
and
spell that out a
whatever
bit
else.
more? What does that exactly mean?
Yeah,
Just
so
swapping equity in
essentially
each
what we
other's
did,
correct.
correct,
Ah.
exactly. So we instead of, we're both bootstrap fintech businesses, right? So there's not a lot of cash lying around.
Yeah.
So we couldn't exactly buy shares off each other, but we just said, we think that, your concept is great. We think that your software is great. We think we'd be more valuable together. And that's it's panned out, reasonably well.
Awesome.
So yeah, we just traded equity in our businesses, and built out what is now Loan Options AI. So yeah, we're on kind of we're on the second version of the website now.
It looks awesome.
Yeah, and we partnered with an agency to do the design and build out the current website. But the application journey and the loan matching is all done in house, which is a critical
Mm.
service that we offer.
While we're on the
Uh,
website, Julian, and it's quite fresh for you, it's because there was a big difference in terms of what it looked like from what it was to what it is now. Have you seen a big difference in uptake of customers or anything like that?
Yeah.
Yep.
So we went through a whole rebrand at the same time, and it's hard to know exactly what
Mm.
part of it is. Like obviously the brand resonates better. It better articulates out what we actually do and the value that we add to the client. It also does a great job of creating the kind of villainous characters of the industry, and almost like the beware of these guys. Whether it's the big banks in the suits, or the broken brokers, the ones that aren't looking out for your best interests,
Yep.
and the predatory style loans like the payday lending side, and even things like the kind of the slick joes, or the dodgy car dealers, right? So the brand resonates better now, but of course a large part of it is a highly optimized website that has
Yep.
beautiful design and is very easy to navigate, is hugely. And I think like just at the partnerships level in our business, we had a huge spike in people that wanted to be partnered up with us. I think it added a different level of polish to our business,
Mm.
and we immediately started getting approached, which we hadn't done before. We hadn't really had that before.
Yep.
We typically had to go and hunt new partnerships, but all of a sudden now people are like, wow, look at this! Like this is amazing. How can we partner? There's got to be a way that we can partner, and that was eye opening for me, because I was like, if you build it, they will come.
Mm.
But it never been that way before. I was like, we're building it, but they're not coming.
If you build it nicely, they will
Yeah,
come.
exactly. If you build it really well, they'll come. So anyway, that's just learnings. I think
Yeah.
even our internal software team, like them, they do back end, front end, but so they're full stack developers, but they know that there's a different level of execution
Mm.
from a marketing company that can build a website through to software developers that are mostly working on what I would call pro versions of software. So like the CRM itself is not used by consumers. The CRM
Yep.
is used by pro users. And so that user experience and user interface and design language is very different to something that you want a customer that needs to know how to use it with zero training immediately once they land on the
Yeah.
page.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that was that's one of the learnings I've certainly had.
Oh, that's interesting. Mate, did you tell us what that app was when you were 18?
No,
Did you
I
skim
haven't told
over that?
anybody that. I didn't tell. It's embarrassing, and it wasn't a great app. It was an app that I built basically on the back of feedback from my mates. It was essentially a aggregated sports news app with just some other gimmicky features. So, but basically, the main selling point of it was aggregated sports news, which at the time, 2010, wasn't that common. You had to go to like
Mm.
the NRL website to get the NRL website. Now there's like
True.
Flipboard and Apple News and all these kinds of things that were on people's phone, but at the time there wasn't. It was like you had to go to the Daily Telegraph website and kind of find what you wanted to. This was like just sports, like NRL, NFL, NBA, like AFL, kind of all of it. So
Yeah.
anyway, it wasn't a great app. I just, it was self-taught.
Yeah.
Built it. It was
Lots
a
of
goal of
learnings in
mine
there.
for sure. Yeah, for sure.
I think it was awesome as well how you've laid out how you, I guess, developed the logic first for what is now loan options, and you only use the spreadsheet and you use Typeform. There's so
Yeah.
many different applications that could be used, right? Like for people listening and hey, I want to get into software, they could start with that first.
Yeah, start with MVP. It costs $0. It costs a lot of time to build the logic, of course, and tens of thousands of lines of formulas, nested formulas, and the amount of times I wanted to break my computer, like for sure. But yeah, it's a great, like you should always try and build your whatever product you think or whatever idea you have. build it to MVP, and then test it in the real world. Like the best example or analogy I can use is like water always finds its level, right? If you leave it for long enough, it'll settle and you'll know what the water level is. But I know a lot of founders that do this. They have this great idea and they want to launch with like a product that's quite heavily feature rich, and they get it wrong, because they overinvest before they figure out if there's actually something there or not. And my suggestion is launch with MVP. I think Fred Shabesta from Finder has the same methodology, and that was kind of the first time that it reinforced that for me. Just hearing him talk about it. Launch with the MVP, get it to the market, get it revenue generating. Once it's revenue generating for you, then it can fund the development.
You've got options after.
Yeah, I think that's
my LinkedIn post
my
today. The heading was "What you start with is not going to be what you end with." So it's pretty on point with what we're talking about. And when we launched Partner, it was like you said, MVP, very basic, and we had even 12 months like today, 12 months from then, we could never imagine what we're doing now. But it wouldn't have happened if we didn't just start with something.
Yeah, and the best feedback you can get is from people actually using it, and your ideal customers. If you build it in a silo without actually getting real world and real user feedback, it's just not going to be optimal.
Yeah.
And so I that's been a way that I have been able to have a bootstrap startup. Is that like everything we build is like how that's one of the criteria for building it is like, is this going to be revenue generating? If it's not, then how does it align with the strategy? Because if it's not helping customers or not, and obviously by definition, the more customers we help, the more money, the revenue we make. But if it's not helping customers, then why are we doing it? So there's some situations where we want more efficiency, and so we build that because it's like it's either more revenue or less cost. Those are the two levers or the two criteria for anything we build. Really, is it needs to either help us on the top line or help us on the bottom line.
Yeah, that's good focus. Now, LoanOptions.ai sounds normal now, but it wouldn't have in 2020. Were you one of the first movers in? I would say not even in the fintech space, just in using AI. Were you one of the first?
I'm not going to say the first because there's always that startup that you didn't know about or whatever, but certainly in the top 5% of early movers. I've been even just going back to my web development course, there was some topics and modules on AI, and I'm obviously someone who likes to go and do a lot of their own research, and self-taught with a lot of things. And so I became obsessed with it, and obsessed with AI, and I think there's that saying that talks about people often overestimate what they can achieve in a year, but underestimate what they can achieve in 10. That's the case with AI. I really thought that we were going to be where we are today, where it's like widespread adoption, and I thought we were going to be there much faster. So I was wrong about that. But now it's good. I mean, it's so good to see all the. This is my field of work, and I still can't even keep up with all these new products coming out. There's
100%.
some really great AI, both in the generative side and also on the more kind of data side, like the machine learning models, deep learning, reinforcement learning, like all of that stuff. Like some of the stuff that's coming out is just absolutely mind blowing, and it's moving at such a pace now that go back to 2020. People are like, what's .ai? And when I used to tell people the email address or the website, they used to always send it and they'd go, hey man, your email bounced back. And I was like, no, Julian at LoanOptions.ai. They're like, oh, I put .au because I thought like it's .com.au, So there was a bit of that, and people are like, what's AI? And I'm like, oh, artificial intelligence, blah, blah, blah. You have to explain it. Someone asked me if it was artificial insemination. So
that's a niche market, mate, for loans.
Yeah. Anyway, it was. People go, oh, like, what's that? And I had to explain to them. And look, again, that's kind of working towards the vision of the business. Like when I first launched in 2020, it wasn't exactly what we have now, right? It was like in terms of the AI component. Like now, it's robust machine learning models and, neural nets. And, when we first launched, it was, just still the beta that we're building into the matching engine, which is what we call for the credit policy matcher. But we always knew that's where it'd get to, where it's running scenarios and, using reinforcement learning to get smarter and smarter, the more scenarios that get run and the more clients we help and all that kind of stuff. So it was always in the vision.
Yeah. When
I
you were first
thought it
starting,
was going to get there faster.
right? Did you have pushback with, the lenders or other, the banks and stuff by using AI initially?
No, not really.
Not really?
Not really. No, not really. People are curious, like, oh,
Yeah.
what part is AI? And even some of our competitors, they one of them got up on stage once and was saying there's no such thing as AI in loan matching. And I was thinking, like, what a stupid thing to say. Come to my office anytime you want. We'll show you how it's done,
Yeah.
But that's just, I think people are still didn't understand it. They didn't understand what it is. And there's
Yeah.
AI is a very broad term, but you've got like a lot of subsets underneath that. But they they didn't understand it. So I think the lenders probably was, oh, this is a weird domain because you got like .net, .au, then now you've got the .au domains, you got .finance domains, you got like a lot of different domains. So they probably just thought, oh, it's just another domain.
Yeah.
But yeah, loan options wasn't really, just those words weren't really used that much. And we like now a lot of institutions, including big ones like Pepper, they're using, like, their tagline is the home of loan options. So now, like, options is actually, a big buzzword. People want to see what they want to compare. They want to understand what's available to them. So definitely an early mover just in that scenario. Like, no one, we were the first ones to have on our website within 30 seconds a comparison platform that dynamically gives them all the rates. There are obviously comparison sites that do that, but they don't have the same intelligence in terms of how they're presenting offers. So typically the comparison sites, I won't, don't need to say which ones. I don't want to upset anybody because they're great services. But pretty much, they're just like, they're like dumb offers, like rates from XYZ. There's no intelligence
It doesn't
behind
help you.
how that rate. And then they just click through to another site. You go to that bank site and their model is different. Their model is pay to play. So you're only seeing the offers from lenders that are paying big money to be on that platform. We don't charge lenders to be on the platform. We just want the best offers for our customer. So
it's a much more transparent level.
Yeah.
So now today you've won a bazillion awards. I think you have 30 plus staff at the moment. Is that right?
Yeah.
So can you take us through the journey of when it was, yourself and the founding team to when you experienced like some level of success?
Yeah, well, like, I made a post on LinkedIn. It's a little while ago, but I think it's pinned on my profile because it's something I'm very proud of. When we first started, it was like right in the middle of the whole COVID thing, right? Like right after the first lockdown, and everyone told me you're crazy for starting a business now. And I was getting paid pretty well at the previous job, and I left to like basically just start again with no sort of certainty around how much I would earn or be able to pay myself, if at all. I was investing my own money in starting the business. So yeah, we started. My brother-in-law was kind enough to give us his office space, give us an office within his office to work out of. So we put a 4-seater desk in this, it's not even 3x3 office. It was a really small. We called it the shoebox because it wasn't much bigger than a shoebox. But I'm forever grateful because that was like the stepping stone that we needed just to like get in and start getting some numbers and helping clients. And then we moved into a co-working space for a little while before we did. Then we ended up doing the equity swap, and that we kind of finalized that. Once that was finalized, we moved into the Drive IQ office in Five Dock. And we outgrew that. We just expanded so fast. And, we had all the team wanting to come to the office despite, all the work from home stuff. Like everyone was very engaged. We went from, 4 people to 30 plus. We've got, call center that has 20 people. So we went to like total headcount, if you add it all up, more than 50 people in 12 months or so.
Oh, wow.
So it was explosive growth, especially the last 12 months. We grew 300% year on year. So, but we started and we had 4 offices in 18 months. So, so there's a bit of pain
Moving
there.
from, yeah.
Moving
Gotcha.
from the small office that max 4 people to a co-working space, and then we only had a certain amount of allocated desks there, so we were growing that. We're going to outgrow that section there. Then we moved into the Drive IQ office in Five Dock, and then we just, not long before we needed to, and so now we're in Rhodes, and we have a wonderful office where we filled this office up in a year. We probably need to take down another wall, but we can get some more space adjoining to this. So right now we're not really focused on getting more space. We're just being a bit smarter with how we're hot desking, and because when you have a team of 50 plus people, life gets in the way. So there's this person as the plumber coming in, and that person that has their wife's some event or whatever. So it's often the case that whilst we've got more people than we have desks, they're not all in on the same day, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
we've got people out on the road, and I'm often out on the road. So like even my desk, people can use it. So yeah, that's kind of the growth story. We have won some awards, have been nominated for many, and not actually won many more. But yeah, that's just that. Those are nice to have. They're not. It's nice to get that recognition, and in some cases we were nominated by other people, and in some cases we nominated ourselves. But it's really just those are accolades that I feel the team deserves, because obviously everything they've done in that kind of it's a bit more than 3 years now. August 1st was the 3rd birthday, so yeah, it's been a journey. It's been a journey. It hasn't
That's
all been
awesome.
sunshines and rainbows. I
Oh,
can promise you that. Like any business.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Can I ask, what was the first hire and why?
Well, my brother-in-law and my sister, who were, not exactly founders, but they were the first to come across, so they were working with me in the previous business. And when I exited, they didn't want to be in that business. They were only in that business for me.
Yep.
And so when I said we're going to start our own, so I gave them, some shares and said, let's go and do it ourselves. And we started Loan Options with them. So they were the two. I don't know if you can count them because they're basically family. The
Let's
first,
not count them.
the first hire was another broker, an experienced a guy who was coming out of automotive finance space. I'd known him for a really long time, and he's someone I trusted, and brought him in. Pretty much the next few hires were brokers as we were growing the sales team to handle the additional volume. Before we got data science, an executive assistant, more software developers. So yeah, once the business could, on the top line in terms of revenue and sales, could support, we started bringing in other functions, UI, UX design, all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, I obviously follow you on LinkedIn and Loan Options LinkedIn account. Looks like you guys
yeah,
have a lot of fun in the office. That's
yeah,
pretty important to you and the team.
very, very important. I think it's so easy to get trapped into thinking that people just want a job for the sake of having a job. They want purpose. They want to live, a meaningful life. They don't want to feel like they're stuck in a dead end. So, education, we pay for a lot of the staff's whatever courses they want to do. We give them free online university. We have a book club. We buy whatever books they want to read. So education is big, and that's to upskill everybody and learn from each other. But also, just on the fun side, like ping pong table and
Yeah,
foosball and whatever that's cool. It doesn't keep people. I think what keeps people is just those like we do the last day of the month, we do a silly dress up, and it started as because we were wearing t-shirts or polo shirts all the time. What would be cool if we all agreed on one day instead of doing a casual Friday, we'll do a formal Friday. So we all suited up one time, and we're like, we don't want to do it every week, So maybe we'll
Yeah.
just do it the last day of the month. And then we did that. And then it was like, you know what? Last day of the month is good, but let's do dress up on the last day of the month. So last month was Barbie and Oppenheimer. The month before was Peaky Blinders, and it's just a bit of fun, Just we don't take ourselves too seriously, and we've got a racing simulator in the office too, which is pretty cool. We got a few
Who's
rev
the
heads in
champ?
here. It's me.
It's
I
you.
don't want to brag, but yeah, it's me
Bullshit.
by nah, it's definitely me by a long way. But
Nice.
it's because I probably spend more time on it than others too.
Because you
So
don't do any work.
team's big enough now. I have to do less than I once did. So
You're
still a lot though.
full-time race driver now.
Not quite. I
So-
wish, but yeah.
So you've mentioned partnerships a few times. They're obviously pretty important to the business.
Yeah, well, I think that's where most of the business's growth has come from. It's running successful partnerships. Obviously, we have a pretty successful B2C direct digital advertising channel, but that came off the back of a great partnership with a marketing agency. Before that it was a struggling channel, and so yeah, I think partnerships in a business are underrated. I think people you can't underestimate the power of leveraging someone else's brand or expertise or offering. Like, think about it from this point of view. If someone, let's say they were looking to start or offer finance solutions to their clients, they could try and build it themselves, and they could probably spend 3-4 years fumbling through it and working their way out how to optimize the business. Or they could approach someone like us, and we could be a turnkey solution, as an example.
Mm.
And give them results from day one, and give them none of the risk, because if they decide that it's not a great channel for them, they can just turn it off. And but yeah, we're so confident. We've had many partnerships that we've delivered really well on, and most of the growth, as I said, has come from successful partnerships. And there's a lot of steps that you need to think about in order to I guess have and run a successful partnership, including onboarding and service, and just all the little things. But activation is really important. It's no use having a great partnership if it's not active, if there's nobody driving it, or championing it as well. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, when done right, the results speak for themselves, or you can't really envision how successful it can be if it all comes together.
Yeah,
Now,
absolutely.
what does the future look like, Julian? What's say your next 3-month goal?
3 months, we've got a major deployment, the new version of the LoanOptions.ai application and matching technology.
Awesome.
So that's priority one, really.
Yep.
We've got some really cool bank statements technology coming before the end of the year, and that's gonna, I guess, decision, because to make the models more accurate, some lenders decision clients not based on credit profile. Part of it's credit profile, but some of it's banking conduct. So we're building that out. And yeah, I think just in terms of strategic priorities, those are the two kind of biggest ones. Part of that will be like an app that we build that clients can download. It will help them budget and help them identify opportunities where they're spending too much, etc.
Cool.
Beyond that, in terms of the longer term future, I just think it's probably looking at what other verticals we can expand our technology into, and whether that's through a partnership or through building it out ourselves. We'll kind of explore both options. But yeah, I think we will continue to grow the business. We still got a lot of room for growing. That's probably there's nothing too crazy. We're on the right track. We think we're on the right track. It's just iterate, improve, get better, continue to look after our team, and yeah, just.
What does your day typically look like?
My days these days are mostly external facing meetings. So I'm not one of those guys that likes a lot of internal meetings. I think they often just happen because that's like the habit that people get into. I
Yeah.
think that where I have something meaningful to say, I'll do a meeting, but otherwise I just cascade it through,
Slack or
asynchronous
whatever.
communication, Slack, group messages, whatever, email if I need to. So so most of my day, as I said, is just external facing meetings, partners, potential partners, lender relationships, just driving like the larger scale strategy forward. It's really important to have close relationships with lenders. It's really important to have close relationships with other brokers that might want to license your technology. Same thing with your key partners as well. So and also just learning from people as well. I think I spend a lot of my time I guess connecting with people that probably have gone through similar things and try and understand their perspective on things and see if there's ways that we can help each other.
Yeah. You'll reach out to them and ask if they're free, or start to
Yeah,
build a relationship.
or they connect with me, and and then kind of look into their background, their accomplishments, and I might bump into them at a networking event or something, and then just be like, hey, we should catch up. And a lot of people are always interested to hear the story of loan options. It's kind of usually how it starts, and then it's the conversation spirals from there. So yeah, it's not. I would say 90% of my day is external facing meetings that are going to be productive. I don't just
Move the needle.
things that
Yeah.
will move the needle is a good way to put it.
Yeah. Nice, mate. Well, I think that's probably a good place to wrap it up. Thanks so much for your time, and congrats on all your success so far, mate. It's obviously well deserved, and you're doing some awesome things and giving us, the consumers, some options, which is always lovely and needed.
No, thank you very much for your support and your kind words, and well done to you guys. I think what you guys are building is amazing. It's going to support the founders and other businesses to, I guess, grow out some of these partnerships and see what comes of it. Awesome. Well
Thanks,
done.
Ian. Chat soon.